Good to go.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Joel Whitney. It's a pleasure to welcome you to tonight's Literary Prize Postscript. BPL Presents is the art and culture presenting wing of Brooklyn Public Library. And in this series, past winners and nominees of the Brooklyn Public Library's Literary Prize read and discuss their work. It's almost like a victory lap of sorts. BPL's Literary Prize, as far as we know, is the only prize made up of a jury of librarians, those great public workers who help inspire future generations by providing access to books, including banned books, including LGBTQ banned books, also literacy, languages, Wi-Fi, and so much more. This time it's Dr. Chanda Prescott Weinstein, a 2021 finalist whom we'll introduce to you in just a moment. Even in our summer slowdown, though, we produce almost daily events for Brooklynites and readers around the borough, New York City, and the world. And to follow us on social media to see what's coming up on Zoom or on our plaza at Central Library or in our more than 60 branches, you can please look for us on social media with the handle BPL Presents on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or on our online calendar at bklynlibrary.org/BPL Presents. So tonight we're in for a treat. In The Disordered Cosmos, Dr. Chanda Prescott Weinstein shares her love for physics, from the standard model of particle physics and what lies beyond it, to the physics of melanin in skin, to the latest theories of dark matter, along with a perspective informed by history, politics, and the wisdom, yes, of Star Trek. One of the leading physicists of her generation, Dr. Chanda Prescott Weinstein, is also one of fewer than 100 Black American women to earn a PhD from a department of physics. Her vision of the cosmos is vibrant, buoyantly non-traditional, and grounded in Black and queer feminist lineages. Dr. Prescott Weinstein urges us to recognize how science, like most fields, is rife with racism, misogyny, and other forms of oppression. She lays out a bold new approach to science and society, beginning with the belief that we all have a fundamental right to know and love the night sky. The Disordered Cosmos dreams into existence a world that allows everyone to experience and understand the wonders of the universe. Dr. Prescott Weinstein will be in conversation with Neil Danesha, and to give you a sample of the level that we're at here, Dr. Prescott Weinstein is an assistant professor of physics and astronomy and core faculty in women's and gender studies at the University of New Hampshire. She is also a columnist for New Scientist and Physics World. Her research in theoretical physics focuses on cosmology, neutron stars, and dark matter. She also does research in Black feminist science, technology, and social studies. Nature recognized her as one of 10 people who shaped science in 2020, and Essence has recognized her as one of 15 Black women who are paving the way in STEM and breaking barriers. A co-founder of Particles for Justice, she received the 2017 LGBT+ Physicist Acknowledgement of Excellence Award for her contributions to improving conditions for marginalized people and physics, in the 2021 American Physical Society Edward A. Boucher Award for contributions to particle cosmology. Originally from East LA, she divides her time between the New Hampshire seacoast and Cambridge, Massachusetts. The Disordered Cosmos, by the way, won the 2021 LA Times Book Prize in Science and Technology as well. Neil Danesha is a reporter covering science, technology, and climate change for Vox and Recode. He was previously an editorial fellow at Audubon Magazine and an assistant producer at Radiolab, where he helped produce The Other Latif, a series about one detainee's journey to Guantanamo Bay. He's a graduate of the literary reportage program at NYU, and his writing has appeared in Popular Science, Guernica, and the Harvard Review, among others. So without any further ado, please welcome Neil and Chanda.
Thanks so much, Joel. Chanda, it's so great to see you again. Thanks for doing this. And thank you everyone who's joining us today. I think this is going to be a fun night. I figured a good place to start would be with your own writing, Chanda. So maybe we can get going with what I thought there was a chapter that like really still sticks out to me all these months after I first read the book. So maybe we can go there. It's chapter 4, The Biggest Picture There Is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you to everyone for spending this time in front of a screen for another hour of the day with us. and for supporting your local public libraries, including the Brooklyn Public Library. So I'm going to read just a little bit from the beginning of chapter 4 of The Disordered Cosmos, the biggest picture there is. When people ask me what I do, I say that I'm a particle cosmologist. I tell them I use math to figure out the history of space-time. It's my job to fill in the details about important events on the cosmological timeline. In other words, to tell a cosmological story using math. I have work to do because we still don't have a good sense of how the story begins, although as I described in the beginning, we have filled in a lot of the timeline between then and now. What I love about this work is that this is the biggest picture there is, space-time and its discontents. It also feels like being the keeper of a deeply human impulse. To borrow a word from the indigenous communities that my Black ancestors probably can't come from, I am a griot of the universe, a storyteller. And although I am the first Black woman to hold a tenure-track faculty position in theoretical cosmology, I am certainly not the first Black woman to be a griot of the universe. Indeed, every community, including those of my African ancestors, has a cosmology. My way of studying the universe, through the analytic frameworks that I have mostly inherited from the Euro-American imperialists and settlers who kidnapped my ancestors from Africa and enslaved them, is not the only one. It is not the cosmology of my maternal ancestors, and it's not quite the cosmology of my paternal ancestors either. Although my father is white in most global contexts, he is also an Ashkenazi Jew of Eastern European heritage, the kind of people who come from the shtetl, the village, not urban Western Europe like Einstein. Their cosmology is the biblical Genesis, not the general relativity that I grew up to become an expert in. Cosmology is a deeply human impulse. We have always wanted to have a sense of where we came from and why we are here. It happens to be that because of where I grew up and my own personal tastes, I study one particular perspective on this. And in the coming pages, I hope to sketch out this picture for you in a way that will help you feel some of my enthusiasm for it. At the same time, I can't ignore the larger context that my work happens in. And before the chapter ends, we'll get to that too.
I love that so much. um, yeah, the Distorted Cosmos hat now on paperback. Thanks for reading that. And I think like you write a lot about the idea of the personal cosmology. And I kind of figured maybe a good place to start is, where did your personal cosmology begin? Like, how did you start thinking about cosmology and particle physics? And yeah, where did that begin? Where did that come from?
So I guess it's my mom's fault. So I'll just say hi, Mom. Margaret Prescott's in the audience. And hi to the rest of the Prescott Prudhomme family that may be in the audience. When I was 10, I think my mom was realizing that I needed more enrichment, and that also I was really excited about science. Like, I had first been exposed to like physical science in school for the first time. And I was already a math nerd. Like, I would just like sit after school and like write my times tables out for fun. I was that kind of kid. And so she took me to see a matinee of the documentary A Brief History of Time, which was a documentary about Stephen Hawking made by Errol Morris. And, that was my introduction to this is a job that people do. And to the idea that math, the things we were learning in physical science were really described using this language of mathematics. And so up until that point, I didn't really have a sense that math had these kinds of applications. And at some point, Stephen Hawking was talking about using Einstein's relativity and its boundaries and how we didn't understand what happens at the center of a black hole. So talking about singularities, and how it was his job to try and work through this using math. And I was like, wait, that's a job? And, coming from like a working class, like household, I had no illusions that somebody was going to be paying my way later. So I was like, I have to have some kind of career. So why not like one where I do math all day? And that was really my introduction to particle physics and cosmology was through that lens. And I think I can't really separate out like the need to have kind of like this personal aspiration from that. And so then I came out of the movie theater, like begging my mom for a copy of the book after whining my way in. My mom was like, you can't have the book. It's for adults. You'll be discouraged. But obviously, she was like secretly arranging for me to get a copy because my uncle Peter, her older brother, gave me a copy for my 11th birthday. And not long after that, I found Stephen Hawking's email address and sent him an email and asked how to become a theoretical physicist. And so one of his graduate students replied and basically laid it out for me. And that was kind of like the beginning. That was how I found it. And I just followed that path.
What a great story. I,
A true family effort. It was a whole community effort.
yeah. And I think you write a lot about the importance of community in your journey to where you are right now. And also at some level, your space within the physics community at large, being a queer Black physicist. Could you speak a little bit more about like what that has felt like for you?
So I definitely think that one of the things that attracted me in that moment, as I was watching the documentary, was, there are a lot of things that are nice about growing up in a family that's politically oriented and being raised by political organizers. One of the downsides is that I never had a moment in my life where I was unaware of how messed up the world was and how mean people can be to each other, right? And so I think like actually one of my attractions to it initially was there's a whole universe out there that's like beyond all this garbage that my parents, my aunts, my uncles are confronting in their daily work and trying to transform. And so I think in some way I saw it as a way out. And so I think the hard thing as I got older, like I went off to college and going through graduate school, was the rude awakening of physics is a human practice that does not happen outside of all of those social contexts. And so actually, I think like one of the advantages I came in with as a movement baby was that I had a vocabulary for responding to it. And so I think I was maybe better prepared in some ways than maybe I would have been as a queer Black person without having that political upbringing of, even though it did take me time to find a vocabulary to talk about what is the racism I'm experiencing, the sexism, and to situate it in a structural context, I think I still had like a very childlike understanding of how those things worked going into college. But I think it was easier for me to figure out what are the texts I need to be reading because I had been exposed to some of that growing up. And so I actually think that like one of the things we tend to talk about students from minoritized or marginalized backgrounds through a deficiency model of like, what are they missing because they don't come from a family where it's traditional for them to be academics. And there were definitely things that there were ways in which I did not have an advantage and I was at a disadvantage. But I think that one of the things I brought to the table was that I had an analysis. I had a political analysis that allowed me to frame the world I was witnessing and go out and look for the vocabulary and to even know to ask that question of, I know somebody has thought about this. How do I put those pieces together? And so when it comes to thinking about my own, experience of coming out and dealing with, being one of, I'm now trying to remember that I don't think that I knew any other queer physics students when I was in college. Like, I don't think I met another one until I was in graduate school. Until I was like well into graduate school, actually. And so dealing with being the only one in the room, all of those things, a lot of people struggle with that. I struggled with it. I think the reason I got through it partly was because I had that vocabulary. And also, I don't know, I'm just like a chip off the old block. My mom is like the most stubborn person. And she taught me to be just like her, much to her frustration sometimes.
Well, I guess like talking about I was sorry, I guess to start
Sorry,
talking
Mom.
about I guess sort of talking about your own experience of being a queer person in graduate school. There's a line early in your book, I think maybe in the first chapter, which is called "I Heart Quarks," which, just as an aside, I really enjoy that. Do you have a favorite particle? Is that your favorite particle?
Yeah, I think I'm supposed to say axions, right?
Okay.
I'm supposed to say axions because
Right.
that's the hypothetical dark matter particle that I'm like, I'm internationally known for working on. But I think, yeah, I like I heart quarks. Yeah. So I think quarks are probably my first particle love.
Okay.
We'll put it like that. So that
Got it.
axions don't feel bad about this, because of course they're sentient, emoting, hypothetical beings.
I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they? But you did write that, that the universe is always more bizarre and more wonderfully queer than we think, and this was, I mean, a beautiful line and also kind of striking. So, how do you see queerness in the universe?
I think physicists love wordplay, right? For better or for worse. And this is something I talk about in that first chapter in I Heart Quarks. Like, I talk about the phrase colored physics and me stumbling on that. Like, when I'm taking I don't know if I give this detail in the book, but I first really tripped over that when I was taking my standard model class. So this is like, I was taking Introduction to Particle Physics, and this is like the first time I'm hearing some of these phrases or seeing some of them written online in various places. And I think that the people who came up with colored physics thought they were being really smart, right? Like, they were having a good time. Like, it's like, oh, you put like red, blue, and green together and it makes white, and white is the goal. And this is the 1960s, and they're not really thinking through, like, how does that look? Kind of terrible. Is it something that Black physicists would have come up with? Probably not, right? But there is also this, like, I have this chapter called Space Time Isn't Straight. And the name kind of started as, well, I shouldn't say it started as a joke, but I thought of that name for the chapter. And then I texted it to Brian Shuvi, who is a gay theoretical physicist at Harvey Med, and was like, could I name this chapter this? Ha ha ha. And Brian was like, well, why wouldn't you? And I was like, right, why wouldn't I? And that's how I got the name. And so I think part of it is, and a lot of what I try to do with the book is reframing, right? So it's not even necessarily saying like, oh, there's a queer science where queer people have a different gravity, or are going to think of different theories of gravity, but that we can read these words and our vocabulary differently. And, I think queer is a word that I have a particular, like, specific generational relationship with, which is, when I came out in 2000, it was a word that young LGBT folks were starting to use, and were starting to use in a very comfortable way. But there were still a large number of people who were around who had grown up with that as a slur, and who had experienced it as a slur, and had come of age with it as a slur. And there were these challenging intergenerational conversations about, like, what word is okay. And I think, there are other words that I won't say, that we have a range of words like that in the LGBT queer community. And even now, the contemporary conversations about what is the definition of bisexual, I think also kind of mirrors that difference. When I was coming out, bisexual meant you were interested in men and women. It didn't mean that you were interested in two genders, right? And that's a conversation transition that's happened. And so I think that I am reckoning with, what does this word mean, and claiming this word in a cosmological context in some sense, which is like, queer is supposed to mean strange. And like, look, the universe is fucking weird. It's also full of queer people, right? Like, we're here, we're queer, we're not going anywhere. And that's actually part of the message, is a big piece of the book. And I'm not really trying to do advertising here, but I just want to say the cover is literally, we are of the cosmos and the cosmos is in you. And that's supposed to be part of the message, is that queerness is of the cosmos. Like, no matter what SCOTUS says, no matter what they do next, they can't actually get rid of us.
I think that speaks to how you spend so much of this book doing this thing, which I found really fascinating. And you challenged, like, societal norms or ideas through the lens of physics, and you challenged the norms of physics through, like, a societal lens. And you brought this sort of I know you also teach gender studies, and I think part of that it really showed, like, both of these sides of it really showed through in the book. And there was a point where something that really struck me was when you wrote about the physics of melanin. And I don't think I'd ever considered the physics of how my skin literally works, and that was really striking to me. And a really interesting reframing, I think, of a thing that a lot of us sort of take for granted. Could you maybe talk a little bit like how you came to that particular, chapter or research?
Yeah, I mean, the physics of melanin started with me literally when I was a postdoc at MIT, like going to the doctor, and I didn't even remember. I think it might have just been for a general like exam, and my doctor at the time was one of these like really proactive, like patient-oriented people. He was great. And so he was just like, have you ever had a vitamin D test? People who are of African heritage have a tendency to have less vitamin D and to need supplements. And so I just want to check on that. And this had like never been brought up with me before. And so he ran the test, and apparently I had low vitamin D according to the test. And so I started taking vitamin D supplements regularly. And I think a lot of people have had this experience now of being diagnosed with low vitamin D. And so at some point I was like, so hey, this has to do with sunlight. Like ostensibly the reason that we have lower vitamin D is because like the melanin in our skin is blocking the sunlight that leads to more production of it. So this is light interacting with a material. And I'm like, this is my jam. Why have I not like looked this up? This is my jam. Like I love spectra. I love like photons being eaten by materials. Like why wouldn't I study this? And so there was kind of like this moment of like, wait a minute, this is a physical system. This is and when I say physical, I mean, this is a physics system that I should be able to bring my knowledge as a physicist to bear on. And it's like never occurred to me to ask that question. And there's all this talk about diversity and inclusion in science and, culturally relevant teaching and examples. And like literally nobody's been talking to us about what's written on the body, except to talk about, how maybe it makes some people more endangered, or, occasionally people are willing to have conversations about colorism, although there's not nearly enough of that, right? And so that was how it started. And then around that time, the editor-in-chief at the time of Bitch magazine approached me and was like, would you like to write for us? I was like, actually, I have this weird idea that I want to write an essay about the physics of melanin. And she was like, awesome, do it. And so I wrote this essay, and it was published in the winter 2017 issue of Bitch. Rest in peace. Amazing publication. Tragic that they just shut down. That was my first long form piece ever. So that was like my first long form piece. And so actually when I sat down to write the book, I was like, this is going to be the easiest chapter because I'm literally just going to cut and paste it and maybe like do a little bit of cleaning up. And then that's actually the chapter that I still revise in my head. And so actually there's a difference between the paperback version and the hardcover version.
Yeah, my old hardcover is outdated with my notes. But
I reorganized. It opens completely differently. And I reorganized it a little bit for flow. And I just think that there's a lot there. The chapter is in some ways challenging because as I went through iterations of it, the political environment is shifting. The public conversation is shifting. I wrote the original essay in fall of 2016. I wrote the first draft of the book in May and June of 2019. I am working on like the third draft of the book in June of 2020, and really torn between wanting to be like, the original concept of the essay was, fuck yeah, melanin's awesome, but also needing to acknowledge and navigate the fact that some people don't feel that way about their melanin. Mm-hmm. And that as a light-skinned person, I'm writing about this, and I need to bring that awareness in that other people are having different emotional experiences with it, particularly in this political moment. And that it would be actually weird to write an essay that's like melanin's awesome without acknowledging like how are people usually taught to relate to their melanin? What is when you bring up melanin, what does it bring up for them? And it brings up a range of feelings. And so trying to find that balance point in the essay was hard. And I'm not sure that I did it. But I remember my editor making the comment to me at some point. She was like, this was more sciencey and now it's more social sciencey. And So when the essay is also placed where it is in the book, because it is kind of that inflection point where I'm moving from literally the just science phase into it's not just science. There is the social context to it. And I think that that essay is literally written on the body as the inflection point for the book where it kind of turns.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. It's funny because I remember for anyone who would like a really good primer on particle physics and the kind of work Chanda does, this book also does a really good job of getting into that material. I learned a lot about space just from the first couple of chapters. But yeah, and I think there were, I don't remember exactly, I think it was around that essay is also when you started writing about, when you started challenging the ideas of invisibility in dark matter and the metaphors around it. And I remember being like, oh, I see what's happening here, you know, and that was really striking, I think. And I think that's like that when I was like, oh, I get what she was doing, and it was very, yeah, I found it very clever. Would you like to talk about? I know we had to do audience questions at some point, so I'd like to leave time for that. But would you like to spend a little bit of time talking about that?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of pieces to that, which is like, to be honest, the book was not in the order that it eventually got published in, right? And so actually one of the beautiful things, I always sound like a walking advertisement for the software Scrivener, but one of the beautiful things about Scrivener is that I could literally pick up a chapter and like move it and be like, oh, that flows better. And so there are a lot of ways in which like writing a book, the book tells you about itself. And so the book was telling me about itself while I was writing it. And I was responding to my gut feeling of like, how should things be organized? And so the chapter, Black people are luminous matter, which is really about, you know, how people sometimes analogize between Black people and dark matter, and why this makes me as a Black dark matter expert uncomfortable, even as I understand like why the impulse is there. That actually started as like a Twitter thread. And so actually literally the way that the process of that went is I found the Twitter thread and I cut and pasted it and dropped it into the Scrivener. And you can see one artifact of this, which is that at some point in the chapter, I quote one of the tweets. And that was just because I was like, there's really no way to capture the feeling of this in a professional way, except to like include the tweet. But the reason that the tweet was there was actually because that chapter started as a Twitter thread. So
that's so funny.
For anybody who spends a lot of time on social media, like writing like threads or like writing lots of captions on Instagram, you can absolutely write a book that way, where you just start with those seeds.
It's interesting because like I'm actually thinking about like it's not, it sounds like you operate in these two potentially very different languages. One is math, as you speak about, is like the language of the universe, and one is English. Do you find it difficult to sort of swap between like the physics brain and the writer brain, or is it sort of just all one and the same?
Yeah, I'm actually going to show people like I'm gonna grab my notebook, and I'm a big fan of like showing people what science actually looks like. So let me see if I can get my camera. Okay, you guys can't really see this, but you see there are some words, there are some equations, right? So this is from today. This is like actual today's work product. And this is literally, I was reading through the original 1977 Roberto Pecci and Helen Quinn paper that introduces the mechanism that produces the axion. So this is where the particle that I spend most of my time on was born in theoretical physics. And what I was doing, I started out by copying like 2 sentences from the paper so that I could understand what those 2 sentences were saying. I just decided I wanted to do a deep dive in the original papers on axions this week to see if I had like missed anything, to deepen my understanding with it. And then I'm literally, all of those notes are basically me copying out lines or equations and rewriting them so that to make sure I understand them. And this is something that I picked up from, the idea to do this came from my postdoc advisor at MIT, Alan Guth, who, for folks not in the world of theoretical physics, he's like one of the greatest living theoretical physicists, also like one of the nicest people on the planet. Super excited. I'm having lunch with him tomorrow. So I'm just like, I'm super hyped. Alan's like family to me. I would go into his office, and there was a time when I was like afraid to talk out loud because I had been through a very discouraging research situation where someone had made me afraid to speak. And Alan, I don't know if he consciously thought of this, but had to like retrain me to talk, which you can tell I'm a talkative person, right? So having to retrain me to talk. And Alan would sit there with a paper and say, okay, so what does this paper say? And then he would literally just read the paper out loud.
Wow.
And realizing that like this really distinguished, very famous theoretical physicist also still had to do that, like, what does this paper say? Word by word. So, and so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but in some sense, like we're doing both at the same time.
Right.
And part of we're always having to work at it. I think that this is the piece, is that there is this kind of mystification that happens around theoretical physicists, that like the ideas just like pop up and we're just thinking in equations and the equations are all synthesized. And you even like, there's that meme that you see a lot on the internet where like somebody's confused and there are all these equations like flying around, right?
Yeah.
And I think the idea is that like theoretical, and there was that TV show Numbers, which I've seen every episode of actually, where that was like literally how it would happen on the show, that the numbers would just like fly around. But that's not how it works. We actually have to sit down and write it out and be like, what does this say? And work through the equations. And ultimately, those equations are being translated into language. It's a language.
It sounds like a conversation with the universe, which is just like a gorgeous sort of thought, maybe.
That's your phrase. I think you should keep it. I like it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we can keep on talking. I think the first time I talked to you, it was like we talked for an hour and a half or 2 hours. So maybe
I appreciate that. I'm a really talkative person and you were super patient and the article was really nice. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So I think now's a good time to take some audience questions. So you can put them in the chat, and I think we'll take a few when we have whatever we have time for, I guess. So yeah, folks, go ahead.
I will just say for Val, so I really strongly encourage everyone to take the book out of your local public library, which if you're in Brooklyn, that's the Brooklyn Public Library. But if you would like an autographed copy of the book, Loyalty Books in Maryland, DC, they ship everywhere and they have signed hardcovers. So if you buy the hardcover, you'll get a signed copy.
Okay, let's see, we have one. Well, I do want to shout out real quick that there is something that's more of a statement than a question from a Margaret Prescott. Says, hello, Chanda, better known as Sweetie. So just wanted to pass that on to you.
Thanks.
Okay. There's one. Sorry, I'm like, I apologize for my thinky face while I read. Oh, sorry, real quick, could you please repeat where to buy the book for the autographed copy for folks?
I will drop it in the chat. It's Loyalty Books. It's a Black queer woman-owned bookstore in the DC area. I love them. I love Hannah. Please shop Black woman-owned bookstores.
There's one, so the James Webb Space Telescope, this is from Camille. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The James Webb Space Telescope has been in the news. It's a big deal. Is there something that you're looking forward to from the telescope?
Yeah, so obviously, especially since it's Pride Month, I'm compelled to say that one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to is actually changing the name of the telescope. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it should really be renamed the Harriet Tubman Space Telescope, or something else. But why not Harriet Tubman Space Telescope? What could possibly be better than sending Harriet Tubman into the stars? And so the reason that the name should be changed is actually when James Webb was the administrator for NASA, a gay employee was arrested for being gay, ostensibly for being gay, and NASA picked him up from the police station, extrajudicially interrogated him, and then fired him for being gay. And the reason that we know that this happened is because he subsequently sued. Webb was also likely one of the architects of the lavender scare that rooted out LGBT employees from the federal government. And so actually, I call it the Just Wonderful Space Telescope. So it's still JWST. And a lot of us LGBT astronomers are doing that. So what am I excited about? Okay, so if you go back like a couple of months into the press, there was an image, I want to say it was like late April, that was like the first image from JWST. And ostensibly it was of a star and it was a test image. And it just happened to be that in the background, there were like a bajillion galaxies, and basically a test image from JWST captured what we call the Hubble Ultra Deep Field, which was like a very difficult image to capture with the Hubble Space Telescope. So JWST just kind of like burps incredible accomplishments by Hubble. And this is like a hint of the technological capacity of this incredible instrument. So of course, like I think the name of the instrument is terrible, but it's an incredible feat. And I applaud the scientists who worked on it and everybody who stuck with it through the cost overruns. I think it was totally worth it. You know, the amount of money that like gets spent making like Marvel movies every year is basically like what was spent on that over the course of like a couple of decades. So I think it's a pretty good investment, but I'm super excited to see baby galaxies. We're really going to get insight into how galaxies first formed, and this can give us information about dark matter and can really help us fill in the pieces of the timeline that I was referring to in the reading that we don't fully understand. So I'm very excited to better understand large-scale structure formation, which is to say galaxies and clusters of galaxies. And you know, all of it is our origin story, because all of it is like, where does the universe come from? But then we're really talking about how structures form. We are structures in the universe. So this is really about looking at the origin story of when we start to get put together. And when the universe really starts to, in the sense that it envisions anything, we're being envisioned and made possible in those moments.
It's like I think it was it Carl Sagan who said star stuff?
Yes, we are made of,
Yeah.
we're made. I actually had occasion to look this up recently because I gave a TED talk, and everything has to be like perfect for a TED talk. We're made of star stuff.
That's what it was, right?
Yes.
That sounds pretty great. Yeah. One from Natalie, or she's where they ask, besides your book, what recommended readings can you give us?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I saw in the chat that like Robert Jones Jr. had to leave. So if you don't know who Robert Jones Jr. is, he's the author of The Prophets, which is this incredible novel that came out last year. That if you haven't read it, you got to read it. We are like literally living in this incredible historical moment that we get to live in the time when Robert produced and published The Prophets. And it's a novel that is a story about gay Black men who are enslaved and live on a plantation. And he has this line where I'm not giving anything away by sharing this, where in the book, one of the voices says, "The cosmos are on your side." And I think, you know, it's coincidence essentially that Robert and I had our books come out in the same year, and ostensibly they're different things. His is fiction, mine is nonfiction. But I do think that the books are in conversation with each other. And in some sense, I think what he's articulating, particularly in those portions of the book, are Black queer dreaming. And my book is Black queer dreaming and is a vision of more Black queer dreaming. And so there's a time travel component where you can move between different eras. And so that's one book that I really recommend for people who are like, yeah, but I really want to know how the universe can end. I would highly recommend Katie Mack's The End of Everything. So Katie and I, we started graduate school the same year. Another queer woman theoretical physicist who's also worked on axions. So I highly recommend Katie's book. And then the book that everyone should be looking forward to this summer is Moya McTeer's The Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. She's a queer Black woman who has a book coming out that's it's a popular science book, and it's nonfiction. I'm putting it in air quotes though, because it's told from the perspective of the galaxy. So the galaxy is literally the narrator of the book. So I called it in my blurb, it's cosmic gossip. So I'm really excited about that. And then for people who want to hear like more queer science stuff, Joe Osmondson has his book, Virology, which, do I have a copy of it sitting on my desk? I don't. What did I do with it? That just came out this week. I'm like still looking for it. I'm just surrounded by dark matter and quantum field theory books. Virology, I guess in the blurb, I said it made me gay for viruses. So this is like a really good time to understand viruses from the point of view of queer theory. And that's what Joe Osmondson does. So I highly recommend grabbing any of those books from your local public library.
Cool, thank you. I got more to my reading list. So one from Fatima, which goes, based upon your research in quantum physics and astronomy, are there synchronicities of physical evidence that you witness in your everyday life that excite you?
Okay, so one that like never gets old is photons. So the way that we experience light in a variety of ways, and it depends on like, whether you're a seeing person or not, or whether you experience it through like the sensation on your skin only, or whether also through your eyes. When you take quantum mechanics as an undergraduate in physics, you learn that pretty much anything can eventually be boiled down to particles, right? And so light can be treated as a wave, but it also is actually fundamentally composed of particles that we call photons. And so now every time like I look at a light source, like I'm sitting here to properly light myself up, I have like a ring light sitting in front of me, and there are like photons falling on me like all the time. And this comes back to actually the physics of melanin, which was really the thing. I was like, so wait, there are photons interacting with my skin in a particular way that make the color look the way that it does and relates to our perception with our eyes and all of that. And so photons like never get old. During the pandemic, I've spent a lot of time in this room. This is my home office. And I've been lucky to have the space and the opportunity to do my work from home. I've also been really lucky that I look out onto a whole mess of trees here in New Hampshire. And so I think the other thing that doesn't get old, that goes back to that 10-year-old who's in 5th grade, who's first getting excited about physical science, is photosynthesis. So the green leaves on the trees are having their own kind of interaction with photons. And that was actually my first time really understanding that light had this kind of dynamic with life in that way. And I still really find that to be beautiful. And I guess, so to go back to the previous question, I read last year, one of the books that came out last year also was Berenda Montgomery's Lessons from Plants. And Berenda is a Black woman plant biologist who's like incredibly distinguished, one of my role models that I looked up to. And reading Lessons from Plants completely transformed even how I was looking at my yard. And I found myself like texting Berenda things and being like, what is this plant doing? And so I think my relationship with, what are the photons and the photosynthesis and all of that, that's something that's still magical.
Yeah. I think sort of related to the idea of the magic you feel as a kid, and related to a previous question, are there books, Nicola asks, are there books that you'd recommend to younger readers of middle school or younger age to like pique or nurture their interest in astrophysics?
Yes. So God, I'm gonna get the name of this like completely wrong, but there are these, I want to say, kitchen table series. I think that's what it's called. I have different books that are like basically like experiments that you can do with kids. So there's one about biology, there's one about chemistry, there's one about physics, and all of them feature short biographies of scientists. And so I'm actually featured in the physics book that just came out last year. And of course, I can't remember Liz's last name either. Liz Heineke. So it's Liz Heineke's series. And she has done a great job of making sure that a broad array of scientists are represented in these books. And then there's also activities for kids to do. And so I will just say, like, various of my like Black women friends who are chemists, like Rachel Burks is featured in the chemistry book. Ray is an expert on basically like how to kill people with chemicals. So I just stay on her good side. I just stay on her good side.
So not getting too deep into that in the kids' books, are they?
No, there's nothing like that. Danielle Lee, who in a lot of ways is the person who opened the door for a lot of those of us who are Black and doing science communication. She had this blog on Scientific American back when I was in graduate school called The Urban Biologist, and or The Urban Scientist. And so she's featured in the biology book. And Danielle's an expert on like giant pouch rats. I now understand why giant pouch rats are cool. It took me a while to come around.
Giant pouch rats?
Yeah. So she goes to Tanzania. So these are the kinds of scientists you will be introduced to using those books. So I recommend that. There's also a young readers edition of Hidden Figures. And actually one of the main researchers behind the Hidden Figure story, and whose grandmother was actually one of the Hidden Figures, Duchess Harris, has a book called Hidden Human Computers. That's for young readers, which I actually wrote the introduction to. There will also, I guess, my spouse is maybe watching and is like, how come she hasn't mentioned there will be a young readers edition of The Disordered Cosmos, and that's currently being put together right now. So that's coming. And then there's also Radium Girls. So that's an interesting, there's a young readers edition of Radium Girls, which is also an interesting piece of history.
That's all sounds great. Thank you. Again, I just want to say, I think we might have time for a couple more questions. If you have any, now would be a good time to put them in the chat. I'm going to see if there's any that I missed in the meantime. Okay.
Oh, I see one from Yalini.
Yes. Well, would you like to take that, or I can
Sure.
read it out loud?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I guess like, how do you understand humanity's current structural relation to the universe? Like, is there something that we can do to be in great harmony with the universe? Which is a really interesting question.
Yeah. To the question, and Yalini includes this phrase, I don't want to seem like I came up with it independently, but the question of how we can be in formation with more just, liberatory, ever-evolving, prosperous, joyous, queer, luminous futures. I mean, I think part of it is like asking ourselves that question over and over again in everything that we do and everything that we're doing. One of the takeaways that I hope people get from the book, people who spend time with the book, is that we are of the universe, we are part of the universe. And so understanding our structural relation to the universe is understanding ourselves as part of the universe and as reflecting it and as a byproduct of it. And I think that this is really just another way of saying something that I learned from the Kanaka Maoli scientists and protectors that I've learned a lot from. So Native Hawaiians, who I talk quite a bit about the struggles that they're having around uses of their land for astronomy without their permission. That they talk a lot about the land as a family member, right? And so this is another way of saying we're of the land, and the land is part of our universe, and we are part of the land's universe, right? And so these distinctions that we make between us and the ecosystem, as if we are not part of the ecosystem within the ecosystem, and therefore responsible to the ecosystem in the same way that we are dependent to the ecosystem, and it is responsible for our well-being. We need to go into our relations with each other and everything around us in this way. And so I think about, I at some point talk about, Sean Wilson has this discussion in his book, Research is Ceremony. He's a Native American academic, where he talks about his uncle, whose computer isn't working, realizing or not realizing, but sharing with him and teaching him that his computer is of the land. So I'm touching my computer right now because literally all the materials that the computer is made from came out of the land. And so his uncle talks about his computer is not working right. And this is more than I put in the book, I think, but his computer is not working right. And so he did ceremony with it. So I want to be clear, if that's not your cultural tradition, please don't run off and start doing ceremony with your laptop because you don't know what you're doing. And that's not your stuff, right? But I think that it points to a need for us to reorient ourselves, that even this bifurcation we have between like natural and artificial isn't real. And this is actually something that Ray Burks, who I was just talking about, the chemist earlier, is always like reminding me that, like, you know, people are like, oh, I don't like artificial chemical, or I don't like chemicals in my stuff. And it's like, actually everything's a chemical. So water is a chemical, like it's all chemicals. So we need to be thinking more about, is too much of that chemical bad for me? You know, like lead is actually an important inflection point in the stellar life cycle of nucleosynthesis. Lead is also very bad for us if we have a lot of it, right? But it's not because lead is bad. There's the structures of like how we use lead. You know, who gets to have access to clean water? Like, does Flint get access to clean water? All of these questions. It's not because lead is a bad actor. It's because we people are not being in good relations. Or maybe I shouldn't say we. There are some people who have too much power who are not being in good relations with the rest of us.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think maybe we have time for one more. So I'm going to end on this one from Joel, which is, what do you most want to know?
I mean, I think I most want to know the answer to the last question, which is like, what does that mean in practice? I said all of these like really nice things about.
Oh yes, why don't you? Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I would like to know the answer to that question. I mean, you know, again, what I want people to take away from the book, and maybe I didn't say this clearly in response to the last question, or didn't finish the thought, is if we try and imagine the scenario where every Black child, every Indigenous child has complete unfettered access to a dark night sky and to the experience of wandering under a dark night sky, what are the social transformations that we need to make? What are the conditions that are required in order to make that possible? And so that means the child can't be hungry. They can't be in fear for their lives. They can't be in fear for the lives of their family members. They need to have the mobility device that allows them to get to where there is a dark night sky. That means we have to think about public transportation. I was literally before this on the phone with a member of my synagogue ranting about like the importance of salvaging Boston's public transportation system. So this is like something that's like very freshly on my mind. New York, please don't become like us. It's a mess. And so I think, you know, I want to know the answer for how we do those things. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm sitting here, I'm literally like, my mom is in the audience. And I actually think that I grew up around people who had visions for those answers. My mom, my uncle, my aunt, like my entire like Brooklyn-based, Barbados originating, Grenada, Trinidad family, have spent their lives answering these questions through talking about, you know, wages for housework and, you know, giving families the resources so that they can take care of their own children instead of removing children into foster care and criminalizing them for being poor. So, okay, so maybe that's something that we actually do have the answers to, but I think like the question is like, how do we get more people to extricate themselves from like this really toxic relation that we're in with capitalism, and just like maybe be like, capitalism was tried, it was really bad, put it in the past, and like, let's move forward. So I want to know how we do that. And so, you know, I'm very interested in the work that people are doing. I also really want to know what dark matter is. So that's the one that I work on. The problem that I want to know the answer to, that I think I don't want to work on right now, is what is causing cosmic acceleration. So this is known as the dark energy problem. That's just like a really hard one. And I wrote my dissertation about it. It was the problem I came of age with. Like I literally wrote about it in my college applications because it had just been announced the year I applied to college. And I just think it's a hard problem, and I hope somebody solves it so that I can just know the answer. Yeah.
It all makes sense. Well, thank you so much for this amazing discussion. Thank you all for coming. The Disordered Cosmos. I have the hardcover. Chanda, you have the paperback. It's out now in paperback with including a reader guide by my friend Shirley.
Shirley's so
uh,
awesome.
She's the best, absolutely the best. Yeah, thanks all again. And I hope you all have a great night, a great week, a great weekend, I suppose.
Thanks so much, Neil, Shonda. What a illuminating conversation. Thank you so much to both of you for being here and for letting us eavesdrop on that. And then to our audience in Brooklyn and beyond, thanks so much for being here. And a shout out to Carl and any other BPL librarians who were jurors on this and helped elevate this book, which is so important. Thanks again, Neil, Shonda, our audience. So great to see you. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Brooklyn Public Library.